some people are aware that these people are undocumented. They just think that Donald Trump, when he says he's going to do mass deportation, will not deport them. 60-60 problem is 60% of Americans want, and this is reductive, but 60% of Americans want mass deportations. That very same 60% of Americans also want Let's watch John Oliver's brutal deconstruction of Trump's campaign promise of mass deportation. I think it's important to watch this. I've said that this is a massive issue and that, wait, this part, the second part of the John Oliver, wait, this.
We're going to keep talking about immigration.
Wait, oh, he did 2 episodes on it? Okay. Anyway, let's watch.
About Trump's mass deportation plan. And before we go any further, we'll be talking a lot about the logistics of mass deportation. But for the record, the morality of it is despicable. Immigrants are what McDonald's worst employee says. With that said, let's start with the sheer size of what Trump is proposing, because the campaign claims there are 20 to 25 million illegal aliens in the country, despite experts saying it's roughly half that, with one group placing the number around 13 million people. So they're already off by the population of Ohio. But that still leaves the task of removing 13 million people, many of whom, incidentally, are spread throughout the country.
I can't take it, dude. I have to piss, but I can't even leave this video running without having it jitter every goddamn time because Twitter video is so bad. Oh my God, this fucker can't even do Twitter video, dude. It's not going to be available in my country, probably. Wait, what? Maybe it is. Yeah, it's not. Is there another one? I know the full episodes are available. It's just they don't let you watch it in America until like Thursday or some shit. I don't have VPN. Stop saying use VPN. Oh my God. I will vote for Donald Trump. Shut up. Oh my God. I will vote. I will vote for Donald Trump. Oh my God.
Country and have lived here for decades. Also, deporting someone isn't as simple as finding them, not liking their paperwork and putting them on a plane. It usually requires an arrest, detention, legal processing, and only then removal. And to carry out over 13 million arrests in a short period of time, it's been estimated the government will need to hire between 220 and 409,000 new government employees and law enforcement officers. As for the detention part, think for a second what it would entail to detain 13 million people. Bear in mind, the most recent data has the entire US prison and jail population at around 1.9 million. And we have a lot of prisons and jails in this country. They are kind of our thing. If we had a slogan, it should probably be America, home of jails and the KFC double down. And the Trump campaign will sometimes pretend they've taken this into consideration. Here's J.D. Vance gaming out a possible approach.
Now you've got 20 million, 25 million people. You have to figure out what to do with them. And I guess the way that I think about it, Bill, is, you know, it's kind of like being asked, well, you have a sandwich and it's 10 times the size of your mouth. How do you actually eat the whole thing? And you take it one bite at a time, right? And I think you start with the million most violent, most criminal, illegal alien elements. There's probably, of the 20 million, there's probably 1 million who've committed some violent crime. That's an estimate, but I think it's pretty close to the truth. You deport them first and you focus on them first.
OK, first, I know this isn't the point, but I didn't know Bill O'Reilly still had a show. I had the vague, uninterrogated sense that he died when Roger Ailes did, either because I thought they were the same person or because that seemed like a plausible murder-suicide. I don't know. The subconscious is hard to pin down. But second, one bite at a time is an incredibly callous way to refer to mass deportation, even before you get to his casual 1 million of them are probably violent criminals, a statistic source to that's an estimate, but I think it's pretty close to the truth. And for the record, to deport just 1 million people a year would still cost an estimated $88 billion annually, with the majority of that going toward building detention camps. Over a decade, that'd cost nearly $1 trillion. And to be clear here, my biggest problem with we'd spend nearly $1 trillion on detention camps for immigrants is not the $1 trillion part. I don't want to see a headline tomorrow that says John Oliver blasts detention camps as too expensive. But I do think it's worth recognising the extent to which Trump and Vance are full of shit from a practical standpoint as well as a moral one. But just for the sake of argument, let's say mass deportation were a realistic policy. It still wouldn't solve the problems the Trump campaign's claiming it would. In fact, it would make them worse because they're constantly claiming deportations are the solution to unemployment, housing prices and crime. So let's take each of those in turn, starting with jobs. Historically, deportation has actually increased unemployment in this
Motherfuckers will like stub their toe and blame it on the Guatemalans, dude.
country. A study of the Obama years found that when 500,000 undocumented immigrant workers were forced out of the country, 44,000 fewer jobs were held by US-born workers, which may seem counterintuitive, but what's often happened is companies that rely on immigrants for their customer base or their workforce end up shutting down. And as immigrants themselves will tell you, they might be the only ones willing to do certain work.
The thing is, if he wins, he kicks out all the immigrants. Those who work here in construction and everything, they're immigrants. You're not going to see a gringo filling his feet with cement, or carrying bricks, or carrying this or cleaning. You're not going to see it.
That's blunt, but it's true. There are certain jobs and whole industries reliant on immigrant labour. In our piece on farm workers, we showed you a viral video of a farmer explaining he couldn't hire enough people to harvest his fields, so the produce was rotting. Now, in that particular case, it was asparagus, so it was a minor tragedy at best. But the broader point here stands. And removing 13 million people who spend money in their communities would badly hurt the economy. In fact, experts have said mass deportation would lead to a loss of somewhere between 4 and 7% of annual GDP, which would be a crash on par with the Great Recession. And look, I'm not an economist, despite looking like I was left on the doorstep of an auditor's office as a baby. But my understanding is that the Great Recession was bad. So that's unemployment. What about housing? Because the Trump campaign is promising mass deportation will also fix our housing crisis.
This is simple supply and demand, my friends. We got to do two things to lower the price of housing. Two things to lower the price of housing for Nevadans is we've got to build more houses and we've got to deport the illegal aliens so that American homes go to American citizens.
OK, even if that wasn't total bullshit, J.D. Vance's very existence is proof that supply and demand doesn't always work. There was no demand for a business-pilled, bearded sycophant that gets routinely ignored by Trump. We already have 2 of those, and we barely even use them, and yet here we are with an unnecessary third. The fact is, many economists think large-scale deportations could actually backfire and make the housing crisis worse, since, as you just saw pointed out, undocumented migrants are a key part of the construction industry, and nationally, mass deportation would remove 1.5 million workers from the construction workforce, including more than 1 in 3 roofers, ceiling tilers, stucco masons, plasterers and drywall installers. In fact, one professor who studies immigration says that in the long run, immigrants are the solution to the housing crisis. Without immigrants, you can't increase the supply of housing. And for what it's worth, J.D. Vance, that is actually supply and demand in action. Not just some bullshit you dreamed up while between drafts of your next memoir, Dingus Sonata, where I'm guessing you'll solve poverty by comparing it to a turkey Reuben. And finally, there is the claim mass deportation will reduce violent crime. As we've discussed before, for all the coverage isolated incidents get, research shows immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than US-born people. And FBI data shows violent crime has actually gone down since 2020. It's one of the genuinely good decreases since then, along with the amount of Zoom family dinners and the number of alive Henry Kissingers. One was still one too many. But despite that, Trump's continued making lurid accusations. There were his bullshit claims of pet eating in Springfield, Ohio, but he's also falsely claimed Aurora, Colorado is the victim of a Venezuelan gang takeover. It's an accusation that originated with this viral video of men with guns knocking on an apartment door. That clip frightened a lot of people, but to be clear, the Republican mayor of Aurora has flat out said a Venezuelan gang is not in control of those apartment complexes, and the city has not been taken over or invaded or occupied by migrant gangs. But none of that stopped Trump from going to Aurora to push for mass deportation with the help of Stephen Miller, who even brought along some visual aids.
Look at all these photos around me. Are these the kids you grew up with? Are these the neighbors you were raised with? Are these the neighbors that...
Jesus Christ, dude. This is just Adolf Hitler, brother. Like, that's crazy. I don't know what else to say about it. Like, this is just straight up Adolf Hitler.
that you want in your city? No. These are the criminal migrants that Kamala Harris brought into your community. And as swiftly as they came, Donald Trump will send them back.
Okay, for the record, if we're talking about someone you don't want as...
I mean, isn't it saying Adolf Hitler a stretch, though? No, it's not. That's why I'm saying it. It's not a stretch at all. Okay? Analogies, Hitler analogies are very important because everyone knows he is the big bad. Okay? And my disagreements with Adolf Hitler do not revolve around, I don't know, his opinion on building the fucking Autobahn or some shit. Okay? It very much revolves around his fascist ideology. And at this point, Stephen Miller and Donald Trump are directly echoing his sentiment. Directly. Like, yeah, he's goofy and shit, but like, let's be real. This is straight up Hitlerian. It's definitely a stretch. It's just fear-mongering. It's definitely a stretch. Dog, Adolf Hitler killed 12 million people in concentration camps and work camps, okay? 6 million Jews. Donald Trump wants to mass deport, which, by the way, Adolf Hitler originally also wanted to deport the Jews, okay? Donald Trump also wants to mass deport 20 million people is the number that he's giving. What do you think this is? It is a direct one-to-one comparison. It's not a stretch at all. If anything, you're stretching to try and make it seem like the most violent part of Hitler's ideology is not a direct one-to-one comparison to Donald Trump's. Did you say 8 million? It was 12 million killed? That's what I said. I said 12 million killed, 6 million Jews. This is before we covered the people that died fighting. Is everybody okay? It's not a one-to-one comparison. No, it is precisely a one-to-one comparison. I did say 12. Not gonna lie, you call way too much stuff Hitler, Nazis getting tired and losing its meaning. You need to use better comparisons. If you have an understanding of history, it should be easy. What? Okay. What do you think is a valid comparison to Adolf Hitler? When one president running on a fascist ideology of saying there are deserving American citizens, America is for Americans, Germany is for Germans, okay? That immigrants are poisoning the blood of the nation, which is, again, exactly what Hitler said. When you have this situation and you have Donald Trump also saying we're going to mass deport 20 million migrants who are parasitic, who have diseases, who eat cats and dogs, who are rapists and drug dealers and murderers, just lying about 20 million people with the hopes of getting enough people on board to do mass deportations. What is a better comparison? At what point would you consider what Donald Trump is saying and doing to be Hitlerian? Please. Does he have to like grow a mustache and then cut it in a way like Adolf Hitler? Is that when you will do it? Is it because he's not Roman saluting? Or will you consider it Hitlerian after he's done with his policies? And even then, you'll be defending it, it seems. Tooth and nail all the way to the very end. I agree, but can you explain how it escalates from mass deportation to death camps? I don't know if John Oliver will explain in this argument, but Hitler's original plan was called the Madagascar Plan, which was mass deportation of Jews. Hitler also routinely fucking criticized other countries for not taking Jews away from Germany and said that the responsibility was on them to take the Jewish refugees. Okay? Mass extermination, the final solution, came towards the end. I mean, it was a process of mass extermination that was already occurring, but it finalized because it was too costly in the eyes of the Nazis to maintain concentration camps filled with these people who were considered undesirable. Okay? You don't start off the argument by saying like, we're just going to fucking jail 20 million people. Okay? You start off by giving justifications, as Hitler did as well, false justifications as to why the dehumanization has to set in, which is what Donald Trump has been doing for the past 8 years. Then you move on from dehumanization to directly deportation, like some more permissible forms of dealing with the problem. Once you establish that there's a problem to begin with, when there is no problem, you then require a solution. The solution is deportation until it becomes too costly to deport them. The process in which you deport 20 million people that are currently living on U.S. soil, 1 in 15 American families have at least one family member that is undocumented. You'd be ripping apart 1 in 15 fucking families in this country, okay? And the only way that you can conduct this kind of mass sweeping campaigns is through dragnets, is through mass deportation policies where you go and you basically arrest every single person that looks the part, okay? with the assumption that they're most likely a criminal undocumented migrant. Then you would have to very quickly process them through the court system if you still have any sort of interest in maintaining a court system at all, okay? And in which you would have 300 people, 400 people at a time sitting in a fucking courtroom where one judge just sanctions off their mass deportations. Now you have to process these people. You have to put them somewhere. And in order to put them somewhere, you have to build camps. You have to build camps where you concentrate certain subsects of American society. You have to militarize these concentration camps. Okay? But at this point, you've already built a case for why these guys are criminals. You've already seen that the entire nation is willing to go along with this kind of dangerous rhetoric, with this kind of dangerous sentiment. So now you have to build some camps. And in these camps, it's not like you're going to have, fantastic living arrangements. You're talking about 20 million people after all. There's an economic toll to this kind of thing. Okay? So you put them in less than desirable conditions, slam them into these fucking concentration facilities at the border with the goal of inevitably deporting them. Where will you deport 20 million people? Nobody knows. But, we'll figure it out. Now, there is a dark part of American history where a similar thing happened. Donald Trump actually brings it up all the time. Under Eisenhower, it was called the Bracero Program, Operation B. I won't say the word. Donald Trump actually brings that up quite frequently. He says that was a fantastic operation. It was only 1.2 million, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mexican origin people living on U.S. soil. Operation Dry Front, but the opposite of Dry Front. Okay? In that process, there were American citizens born in the United States of America with documentation that were also deported. They were shipped away. They were put in concentration camps. They were cleaned with chemicals, and then they were shipped away to other places that they did not belong to. Okay? I don't know why you haven't responded to a single damn thing that I've mentioned so far. Yeah, this is it. Short-lived operation used military-style tactics to remove Mexican immigrants, some of them American citizens from the United States. Though millions of Mexicans had legally entered the country through joint immigration programs in the first half of the 20th century, and some who were naturalized citizens who were once native, Operation WB was designed to send them to Mexico. There were plenty of people who weren't even Mexican that were sent back to Mexico. At a certain point in the process, you will start recognizing that this mass deportation policy is simply too costly and ineffective. And considering the fact that the reason for mass deportation wasn't necessarily born out of any sort of like logical problem that you foresaw, with the only solution being mass deportation, and simply lies that you are telling about people that you have otherized successfully, dehumanized successfully, such as undocumented migrants are responsible for crime or whatever, which is completely false. Undocumented migrants are responsible for less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens. Undocumented migrants are stealing our jobs is also bullshit. Undocumented migrants steal our social safety nets is also fucking bullshit. They actually cannot take advantage of American social safety nets, even though we don't have a lot of social safety nets to begin with. And instead, they put back into the economy significantly more than they actually take out of the economy. You will inevitably arrive at the only solution, which is the cheapest one, which is mass murder, mechanized death in concentration camps. Do you understand? Yeah, only problem is there is no Red Army to stop it this time.
As your neighbour, Stephen Miller would be top of my list. Imagine getting up in the morning, looking across your yard and seeing that fucking guy standing there looking like a minion's penis. Also, quick side note, if you're wondering what this thing is, it's a fair question. And that's a Trumpy bear. A stuffed bear with Trump's hair, a tie and disturbingly human eyes. It looks like Paddington Bear if he had multiple hemorrhoids. It looks like a Care Bear that won't stop calling the other Care Bears gay. But don't let that bear distract you from the fact you just saw a crowd baited into booing pictures of Hispanic people who don't look like your neighbours. At that event, Trump announced plans for something he calls Operation Aurora. And his campaign has since described the city as a war zone. And that specific language points to what his real endgame here might look like. Because while, again, Trump can't deport 13 million or even 1 million people overnight, and mass deportation won't fix any of the problems he says it will. He could still use Aurora-style panics to give himself a ton of power. Here he is at that rally, gaming out a key piece of it.
I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Think of that. 1798. This was put there. 1798. That's a long time ago, right? To target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil.
Literally. 1798 is a long time ago. I reluctantly concede that point. But the act he's describing there is terrifying. It's a law that allows for summary deportation of people from countries with which the United States is at war, that have
Uncle Grampy, thank you for the 50 get this
invaded the US, or that have engaged in predatory incursions. It was last used during World War II as the legal authority for interning immigrants of Japanese, German and Italian descent. And experts are concerned that a president like Trump could recognise a cartel as the de facto government of Mexican territory, then proclaim a migrant invasion perpetrated by the cartel government, and in doing so give himself a turbocharged deportation authority. That way he could quickly remove non-citizens, even green card holders, without any due process. And while there'd be legal challenges, the courts are now much more Trump-friendly than they were 8 years ago. And even if Trump doesn't choose to go that far, or does get stopped by the courts, it's worth remembering what he was able to do in his first term anyway. Because in addition to the endless circus of outrageous nonsense back then, like hosting a fast food banquet, or staring directly into the sun, or doing a loud honk honk in a big vroom vroom, he also aggressively ramped up immigration enforcement using large-scale worksite raids, which involved immigration agents storming workplaces. That's what happened in 2019 when ICE carried out massive raids on chicken processing plants across central Mississippi, arresting 680 workers in what may have been the largest ever workplace operation in any single state. And these weren't sweeps for violent criminals. They were attacks on working people whose only offence was being undocumented. More than 350 were deported, and many...
I wonder if they'll mention that this was actually invited by the owners themselves. Because the process in which this is conducted is simply a gentle slap on the wrist baked into the corporate profit margins. This literally was invited by the corporate owners. The reason for why it happened is because they had a litany of sexual assaults and harassment cases, and that the workers were getting together to demand back pay that they were not given. And the owners literally called ICE on themselves to be like, we suspected there's undocumented migrants in these facilities. ICE came in and mass deported them. You want to know something really interesting? They were brought there by Purdue. They were brought there and placed in trailer parks by, I think it was Purdue, not Tyson. And you know what they did immediately after the mass deportation took place? They went back to the same areas to bring in a new crop of undocumented migrants into that same exact trailer park. The next day. No, they fucking didn't. Holy fuck. If Trump does win, do we think he will go full hog and do insane shit, or will he pretty much do nothing and some shitty stuff like last time? That's so fucked. No, they didn't. Holy fuck. He doesn't cover it here, but he covered that all in a different episode last year. I'm being sarcastic, lol. Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, they did do that. Could Trump accomplish all of this? If it wasn't Tyson, it was Smithyfield? No, I thought it was Purdue. But anyway, yeah, no repercussions for the company whatsoever, because the repercussions are built into the profit margins. Okay? If the corporate owners that are regularly hiring undocumented immigrants, deliberately moving them around the country, placing them in trailer parks right next to the fucking chicken factory, on purpose, knowing full well that they're undocumented and therefore they can be extra exploited. If the cost for that on their end is significantly better than the financial or criminal penalties they might incur, then of course they're going to do that. It's basically a deportation tax. When your workers get a little too rowdy, you deport them and you bring in a new crop.
Many others are still awaiting court decisions. Many of the families broken up that day remain separated half a decade later. And the trauma of those raids on families and children was truly awful. And I will warn you, this is hard to watch.
I'm crying because I'm dead, Daddy, Mom.
Yeah, they also engage in child labor practices as well. Employers They're employing minors, literal children have been caught working for Purdue, Smithfield, and Tyson. That's the other part.
The Hispanic people are not doing nothing bad. They're not stealing nothing. My dad bought everything for me to live over here. The rent, and I don't know what I'm going to eat. No, I need my dad for me. My dad didn't do nothing. He's not a criminal.
Yeah, we did that. And we're apparently a coin flip away from going even further. And a lot of Trump supporters seem to be in denial about exactly what a plan of mass deportation would entail. And that's a frustrating pattern here. In Trump's first term, this local business owner in Indiana was deported to the apparent shock of the people in his community.
It just feels wrong.
The community is better for having someone like him.
I mean, he showed up here with just the shirt on his back, and he's a restaurant owner 20 years later. I mean, and he worked his butt off to get there. I've seen it.
They're all strong supporters of Roberto Beristain, though 4 out of 6 of them voted for President Trump.
I voted for him because he said he was going to get rid of the bad hombres. Roberto is a good hombre.
Well, a couple of things about that. First, if showing up with the shirt on your back and working hard for 20 years makes someone a good hombre, I've got some news for you about a whole lot of fucking immigrants. But also, how do those people even begin to apologise for a situation like that? I don't think Hallmark sells cards that say, sorry, we inadvertently got you deported because we assumed Trump would only be racist against Hispanics we didn't know personally. And I really want to hope.
This sentiment is so goddamn commonplace in America, and that's precisely the reason why that 60-60 problem that I consistently repeat occurs. A lot of Americans don't understand that they are constantly in contact with undocumented migrants, that they are neighbors, that there are people that are working in places that you go to and frequent on a daily fucking basis. Some people are aware that these people are undocumented. They just think that Donald Trump, when he says he's going to do mass deportation, will not deport them. 60-60 problem is 60% of Americans want, and this is reductive, but 60% of Americans want mass deportations. That very same 60% of Americans also want a conditional amnesty program set forth for undocumented migrants that have been living on U.S. soil for an extended period of time that have not done a crime. Okay, as AOC also said, 1 in 15 people live in mixed documented housing. 1 in 15 Americans live in mixed documented housing. What makes you think it's the same 60%? Okay, it's 40 plus 20% of people at the very least that are saying that they want fucking mass deportation also want mass amnesty. Is that good? 60% of the people polled on this fucking issue, at a minimum, 20% of those people that want mass deportation also want mass amnesty. It's the 60-60s more than 100, you obtuse. Wait, I don't think you guys understand. I'm stating that the very same people that are polled by 60% margins want mass deportations. The exact same group, when asked, would you like to offer conditional amnesty to undocumented immigrants? That same exact 100%, 60% of them say, yes, I do. Do you not see a fucking inconsistency here? It's not two different pools of people. It's the same pool of people.
Hope. People are waving around signs without understanding what mass deportation actually means in practice. But make no mistake, the people campaigning on it absolutely do. And it's horrendous. So what can we do here? Well, there's the obvious, and that is vote. But it's also worth talking to people in your life who are concerned about immigration, about what they really want to happen here. Because our system definitely does need fixing. But there are much more humane ways to do that. And even some Republicans seem open to that idea. Because, well, as I mentioned earlier, the slogan mass deportation polls depressingly well. A recent study showed that when people were actually given a specific choice between mass deportation and pathways to citizenship as an immigration policy, specifically outlining how each might work, majorities in every swing state preferred the path to citizenship. In fact, even among Republicans in 5 of 6 swing states, it was preferred, which suggests that when people genuinely understand what these policies look like, they tend to choose the less punitive one. And I do believe the vast majority want to do what is right for the immigrants they know. The task is to extend that same humanity to the immigrants they don't. And that is a task both parties would do well to adopt, because Democrats have not been stellar on this issue either. Obama holds the record for most deportations.
Honestly, I hate that he says it does need fixing. No, our immigration system is broken. It does need fixing. But The problem is when I say our immigration system is broken and it needs fixing, I mean we need faster processing. We need mass amnesty, and we need faster processing for people that want to come here legally, okay? It is only when you shut that opportunity off that people come in illegally. This is the entire conversation that I had with Greg Kazar yesterday. These are pro-cartel policies that are implemented by the Republican Party in most circumstances, and now even the Democratic Party is advocating for it as well. Saying that the real problem, the real immigration crisis and the real problem is that there isn't enough border enforcement is ridiculous. There's plenty border enforcement. There's plenty border enforcement. There's plenty CBP operating inside of big cities. The problem is that we do not have a safe and legal means of migrating into the United States to work.
Deportations in a single year. And Biden's immigration policies, as we've discussed multiple times before, have been haphazard at best. So I would hope a potential Harris administration would do much better than the one she's been part of for the last 4 years and begin a much-needed overhaul of a system badly in need of repair. But to be very clear here, immigrants are not the ones that broke this system. On the contrary, they're making the most of the splintered shards we've given them and continuing to build lives, communities and this country into something better, richer and stronger. And the very least we can do for them is to go out on November the 5th and not pick a president who demonises their existence, advocates for their suffering and has proven multiple times that he is, to put it mildly, a bad fucking hombre.
So that was the first immigration conversation that he had, and there's the second one. You annoy me a lot, but glad to agree on immigration. What? Lib who thinks you are annoying, but yep on this. If you think I'm annoying, but you agree with me on this, you probably agree with me on a lot of issues that you think you disagree on. You just probably have seen a bunch of clips, you know?
I'm intimately familiar with the US immigration process, having finally become a citizen in 2019. It was a long, stressful process capped by a moving naturalization ceremony at which, among other things, I gave this awkward thumbs up. And also, I got this little flag. But one part of the ceremony stuck in my head, and it's something millions of naturalized citizens have experienced. Here's footage from a different ceremony that same year where they explain what's about to happen.
At this time, please direct your attention to the front for a congratulatory message from President Donald Trump, followed by an inspirational video presentation of God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood.
It's true. Right after a message from the president, everyone there had to sit through a music video for Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA. And it's exactly as weird as it sounds. Here is what it was like in that room. While thinking, how long is this song exactly? And I got curious about the presence of that song at the ceremony, so we did some digging. But before we get into any of that, a bit of background on God Bless the USA, which is undeniably a very patriotic song. Since its release in 1984, it's had multiple surges in popularity, usually at difficult moments for the country. General Norman Schwarzkopf is said to have played the song to his staff the night before Operation Desert Storm, and after 9/11, it was so ubiquitous, it re-entered the singles charts, peaking at number 16. And while Lee Greenwood's repeatedly claimed his song is apolitical, he definitely isn't. He's performed it at a lot of conservative events over the years. Here he is, singing it for Ronald Reagan at the 1988 RNC. Here he is.
Interesting. That guy also did mass amnesty for undocumented migrants living on U.S. soil and working on U.S. soil.
Modifying the words to God Bless the NRA for one of their national conventions. And here he is becoming the third person ever inducted into the CPAC Hall of Fame while receiving something that looks less like an award and more like the world's first Ferrero Rocher pigeon. More recently, Greenwood's been a big booster for President Trump. He played his inaugural, introduced Trump at this year's Republican convention, and serenaded him early this month when he returned to Butler, Pennsylvania, making his music the second worst thing to happen to someone's ears there. Now, interestingly, Greenwood's never had a hit anywhere close to God Bless the USA, something he insists he's totally fine with. He said, if you're going to have to be known for something, be known for something really powerful and really good. I'd hate to have Purple Rain or Margaritaville be my signature song, which is just a wild drive-by against two objectively better artists. You'd hate to be known for Margaritaville? A song that became a restaurant franchise and a Broadway musical? Bullshit! And I'm not even touching the Purple Rain thing, because Prince isn't known for Purple Rain. He's known for being Prince, except for in the 90s, when he was known for being whatever the fuck this is. But to be clear, his signature song is all of them. But the truth is, a lot of people do love God Bless the USA, and Greenwood's found as many ways as possible to monetize that fact, selling God Bless the USA fireworks.
If you were old enough in 2001, you would have been just as freaked out that the U.S. was about to put Muslims in concentration camps like they did with the Japanese in the 40s, but huge shocker, they didn't end up doing that. Are you actually saying that America's post-9/11 policies were good? We killed like 1 million fucking brown people in the Middle East, destabilized tens of millions. Its impact has destroyed entire economies. Its impact has deliberately destabilized half of the fucking planet. We also, on top of that, did the Patriot Act. We created the Department of Homeland Security. We created ICE, which is the agency that we're talking about that is currently doing mass, the agency tasked with these mass deportations. We literally opened up Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, on rented out land over from Cuba so that we could torture people without having to deal with our pesky little laws such as habeas corpus, due process and the like. And not only that, but also 12,000 American boys and girls killed when they went over there to fucking protect the military-industrial complex's economic interests. The idea that we are not bouldering towards straight-up fascism every single fucking election is so silly. We did a metric ton of horrifying nonsense. We invaded a country that had nothing to do with 9/11 after we invaded a country that also had nothing to do with 9/11 to begin with. We invaded Afghanistan, and then we decided to fucking invade Iraq, and we lied to do that. On U.S. soil, we're not going to create 40 shit today on U.S. soil. That is a very, very stupid thing to say, especially when considering that we already have done child separation policies at the border camps as a direct deterrence measure. Donald Trump did do that. Okay. The only issue you have is that, like, yeah, the concentration camps that we have right now that are currently in operation are just not gassing the migrants yet. The Afghanistan thingy is half true, kind of. Yeah, dude. The Afghan government and Afghanistan played a pivotal role in 9/11. You're right. That's why we had to kill all those fucking goat herders and shit. Anyway, everything needs to be an exact repeat of a T for these people. No, these people are just like willingly trying to delude themselves. Like these people are willingly blind to the realities of the metric ton of cruelty that we subject others to. That's
works, a children's book, silver coins, and even this.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's patriotic anthem. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with the handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA.
Now, if doing that to a Bible seems a bit odd to you, you are not alone. Even Christianity Today published a blog post criticising it, saying, "We agree that it's essential to know the contents of this nation's founding documents. We do not believe, however, that they should be published as though they are an extension of God's word." A line of critique the president of the marketing company that created the Bible responded to by saying, "It's got separation pages," to which I really hope Christianity Today responded, "Ooh, separation pages, la-di-da. We didn't know it had separation pages, fuck you," but they probably didn't do that because, Also, for what it's worth, this doesn't really look separated. That's the printed words of the Bible next to the handwritten words of a song chorus looking like a yearbook signature from your worst classmate. Proud to be an American where at least I know I'm free. Jesus Christ, Dylan C. Just write keep in touch. Space is limited and you're not even hot. Oh, one more thing. That Bible costs $60.
Do you say we as an intentional choice because it'd be understandable if you'd use they when talking about what America has done and is doing? I'm an American citizen. I live in the United States of America. I see the endless amount of opportunity in this country in order not to be a force for evil, and I'm not going to stop advocating for it. Just like I say we because I talk about universal policies that will help all Americans, okay?
And if you're thinking who'd be so nakedly crass to be associated with a $60 Lee Greenwood branded Bible, you already know the answer to that.
I'm proud to be partnering with my very good friend Lee Greenwood. Who doesn't love his song, God Bless the USA, in connection with promoting the God Bless the USA Bible. All Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book. It's a lot of people's favorite book.
Sure.
It's not his favorite book.
It's your favourite book. That is why the most famous time you were seen with the Bible, you held it like a model on Deal or No Deal, showing off the briefcase number, then like you're about to kill a mosquito with it, and then just stared at it like you'd never seen a book before. Fun fact, Trump apparently made $300,000 for endorsing that Bible. We asked Lee Greenwood how much he made, and he declined to answer, but said, yes, I have made money from the Bible. It is part of business. And it doesn't end there. In 2016, Greenwood filed a trademark for the phrase God Bless the USA, stating it'd be used on accent pillows, decorative centerpieces of wood, decorative wall hangings, not of textile, home decor and accessories. Basically, the entire left side of any home goods store. That application was rejected in 2017 and again on appeal in 2020 because, as one article put it, the Trademark Office regularly rejects proposed marks where consumers would likely perceive them as merely communicating the ordinary meaning of words. A truly fantastic reason to refuse a trademark. We'd love to help you, but legally speaking, you're basic. But that does make sense. God Bless the USA is clearly a generic sentiment. It's certainly no, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, a phrase successfully trademarked, by the way, by Margaritaville Enterprises, LLC. Suck it. The point is, Lee Greenwood is clearly very focused on making money for Lee Greenwood, even when doing things that might appear altruistic. Just watch as he makes this special offer regarding an upcoming concert.
In all of our shows, I don't care where they are, we always honor our veterans. We want to make sure that veterans and their caregivers can come to our performance. So if your listeners will go to our website, leegreenwood.com, and adopt a vet. For $100, you can put a vet and a caregiver in a seat to watch this amazing television production.
But that's not charity. He's not giving anything away. He's just getting a different person to pay $100 for tickets to his concert and telling people to make sure veterans can come at seemingly no financial cost to himself. It's like that phrase about our vets. All gave some gave all. Lee gets 40% of the door. And all that brings us back to his song's presence at my and many other citizenship ceremonies, because even that has been a revenue stream for him. Because when Greenwood's reps found out his song was being played at ceremonies, they apparently forced USCIS to enter into a settlement negotiations to compensate him. We found that sentence in a government-commissioned report on intellectual property law, but it didn't contain much info on what's happened since. But we wanted to know more. So, a few years ago, we filed a Freedom of Information Act request and found out the government ultimately paid $22,000 to Universal Music, Greenwood's music publisher, for a 6-year licensing contract, including nearly 4 years in back pay, which is both a surprisingly small amount of money and also, I would argue, $22,000 too much. But it gets much weirder from there, because in 2018, the government signed a new deal to license the publishing rights for around $700 a year. But then, during the pandemic, there was a snag with payments because the government wanted to pay with a credit card, but Universal insisted it couldn't take credit card payments. I cannot tell you how many emails about this particular problem there were. In the wake of that issue, there was apparently a lot of confusion about whether the government could use the song at ceremonies or not. Because we turned up emails between immigration employees like, is the Lee Greenwood song allowed now? And I want to make sure I'm not losing my mind. Have we been given the OK to play Lee Greenwood again? There's even an exchange with someone asking, am I the only one who loves that song? And getting the very firm reply, yes, you are. Eventually, it became clear they didn't have a license to use the song anymore. And staffers were told last November it is very important to reiterate that we no longer have the licensing rights to play the Lee Greenwood God Bless the USA song. A message that still didn't seem to get through, though, given a news article from this May about a New Jersey ceremony mentions new citizens being called up one at a time as Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA played. And honestly, I'm not sure why it's being played at ceremonies at all, not just contractually or even musically, but because Greenwood's past remarks about immigrants have been, to say the least, off message. Here he is a few years ago at CPAC.
Here we are at a free country. We can do what we want. We have immigrants who come here all the time. They need to know this. They need to know we're still a Western country that believes in God. That's it.
No, that is not it. And fellow immigrants, I cannot stress this enough. Do not listen to Lee Greenwood, because among other things, you will fail your citizenship test. The fact Americans are free to have any religion or none whatsoever is an answer to 4 separate questions on it, including what is freedom of religion? So pay attention to what's actually on the test, not the man dressed like a loan shark in mourning. And when it comes to undocumented immigration, Greenwood will quickly jump to the negative like this.
My song, God Bless the USA, is used in the welcome film along with the national anthem and the welcome from the President of the United States. That makes me extremely proud. What does not make me proud is that any administration prior who has not sealed our border and stopped people from China, from Iran, or any terrorist organization who would fly to Mexico and come across the border illegally, filter into our nation, and waiting till they're told to be the next terrorist attack. It is coming.
OK, that is obviously idiotic, but I love the idea. Aspiring terrorists are just sitting around and waiting to be told they're America's next terrorist attack, like they're on Bravo's most controversial.
Yeah, they're gonna fucking get activated. They're just waiting for the code words, you know? Republicans live in an American Dad episode. I mean, American Dad is a perfect distillation of the way Republicans operate. Terrifying shit, dude.
New reality show. And look, maybe all this, the fact Greenwood's a tacky Bible salesman with views completely at odds with everything a naturalization ceremony represents, maybe you can stomach his song being used on the grounds it's a uniquely American tribute to this singular country. But is it? Because it turns out, just 5 years after he released God Bless the USA, he released another song, and it's going to sound very familiar to you until it suddenly doesn't.
And I'm proud to be in Canada, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me.
Are you fucking joking? Deport him to Canada right now. Deport him to Canada right now, right at this very moment.
And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless you, Canada.
No. Unacceptable. Flag on the play. That's crazy. How them Lakers? What? I don't care, dude. What do you mean? That's crazy. You can't be out here fucking running the same route for Canada when they have barely contributed to the metric ton of violence that we've subjected the global South to. Okay? You can't. They ain't putting up numbers like we are. You know, how many people do they directly contribute to the killing in Iraq or Afghanistan? You can't be out here doing this shit.
It doesn't even fucking rhyme! It doesn't rhyme! You cannot keep Defend Her Still Today if you're not willing to sing God Bless You Canada. You can't do it! But the point is, he took his quintessentially American song and switched a few words so it would be about Canada instead. The rest of it is him just finding and replacing Canadian places for American ones. Take a listen.
From the shores of Nova Scotia to the forests in BC, Montreal to Winnipeg, from sea to shining sea.
That's unacceptable, bro. That is so unacceptable.
Come on! You can't just pack your song in with place names like a Mad Libs and call it a day. You know why? Because you'll get real YouTube comments like this one saying, I am from Rwanda and Mr. Greenwood has not made a version for us yet. See? It's a slippery slope. All of this is to say, for multiple reasons, I'd argue Lee Greenwood's songs should never again be played at citizenship ceremonies because they deserve one genuinely unique to this country. A song that celebrates the nation new Americans are about to join and the process that they've been through while also not soft-peddling some hard truths about it. And the good news is, I think we actually have the perfect song and it's performed by an actual American treasure. And not only will we not charge the government $700 a year for it, we're not arseholes, we'll actually pay them $701 a year if they agree to play it at naturalisation ceremonies from now on. And I could tell you more about it, but honestly, I think it's probably best just to show it to you.
You studied hard, you did your best, filled out the forms and passed the test. Now you're part of a land that's so God blessed. And starting today, you're American. There's corn dogs and apple pie, fireworks lighting up the sky, NASCAR rodeo barbecue. That stuff's American, now so are you. We learned our presidents and our laws. I think it's time to mention our flaws. We're a real big country with real big problems. We're kinda hoping you could help us solve them. Televangelists and fossil fuels, metal detectors in all our schools, private prisons and Mountain Dew. That stuff's American, now they're your problem too. And CTE, the war on drugs, Scientology, Boeing Airlines and Ted fucking Cruz. They're all American, now so are you. Nowadays it's harder to be free, hard to be the country that we ought to be. You weren't born here, you volunteered to join your fate to the great and the just plain queen. So get ready for truck nuts and jet ski tricks, Santa Con and food on sticks, thousands of medical bankruptcies, plantation weddings and Chuck E. Cheese, big ropes and LL Bean, tornado spirit Halloween. Holy shit, I just remembered the coup. South American, we sure ain't perfect, but here's to the fight. The brightest future is the one you'll ride. Wherever you come from, wherever you roam, fellow Americans, fellow Americans, fellow Americans, welcome home.
I mean, it's not a bad song, like straight up.